Okay, everybody. So first thing that I really want to get started with is, Harsh went through, uh, you know, what AI is, how it can be used in different scenarios. But now want to really drill down to, from a sales perspective, how you should be using it with very specific use cases, where maybe people are faltering today. And so first, I want to talk about how sales is done today without AI. And so one thing, first off, we can even mention lead scoring is people are doing things that are assumption based. And so what do I mean by that? When you look at lead scoring, even with fairly advanced models, what people are usually doing is they're looking at uh, a group of criteria. For example, if a website link was clicked, if a document was viewed, if they've opened emails, etc., and they're basing it on points. And even if you have the type of experience that I do in the sales space, it's still based on assumptions. And so you really have, no idea specifically of the collection of data that's causing something to happen when you're doing an assumption-based model. You're getting as close as you can, but you're assuming instead of letting the data speak to what their true answer is. Another way that people are doing it without AI is task-oriented. For example, we use a lot of email flows. Whether that's for inbound, whether that's for outbound. And what a lot of people are doing today is they're setting tasks. So, okay, day 4, I'm going to call somebody. Day 8, I'm going to send a really research-driven LinkedIn message to someone. Those things take a lot of time, number one, from a manual standpoint. But number two, we don't even know that that's the most efficient time to be doing it, or that's even where you should be spending your time in terms of that specific prospect or client. So people are doing a task-oriented. And then lastly, people are being reactive instead of proactive. For example, a lot of times you're waiting to get some sort of response for a client before you then decide to hop into action and spend more time there, versus you could be proactive, understanding who's engaging at what levels and where you should focus your time. So how should you be using AI in sales? Well, we're going to go over 4 specific ways. There's a ton, but we'll go over 4 for the purposes of this webinar: lead scoring, customer lifetime value, upsell and cross-selling, and forecasting. So let's get into each one. Let's start with lead scoring. So lead scoring, again, we spoke to briefly, is a process of assigning values, often in the form of numerical points, to each lead you generate for your business. So machine learning will assign scores to leads based on various attributes like clicks on a website, country, third-party data, etc. So again, with machine learning, it's creating a score based on all of the elements. It's not deciding based on your assumptions what it thinks it's important. It's looking into all of your data to decide what's important. And what that means is you're not going to have wasted efficiency on less qualified leads. What a lot of people don't look at when it comes to their cost structure, whether it's tools, whether it's lead data, etc., their highest cost is usually their talent, their salespeople. And so having them spend time in areas where people aren't as qualified is not very efficient. And then the inverse, it allows you to put more focus on customers with those higher scores. And now it uses all your data to make those decisions, again, instead of just various attributes that you're handpicking based on assumptions. Next, let's get into customer lifetime value. And that's a big one. So it's customer lifetime value is the total worth to a business of a customer over the whole period of their relationship. And so what happens a lot of times is once you get let's say, for example, a deal even with a larger company, you may let it sort of slip by the wayside. Really though, there's a lot of meat on the bone there to focus your time. And so what you should be focusing on with these deals that have already closed specifically is profitability. We should be looking at the ones that have the highest chance to convert more revenue. And based on what AI can tell you, you'll be able to understand where to focus and to target. So for example, in this model, you can see in the far left, there are certain clients that really you shouldn't spend almost any and maybe no time on. And then there's ones that are in the top right corner where absolutely you should focus your time because the conversion goes up significantly, the dollar value goes up significantly. Next, I want to speak to upselling and cross-selling. So these are actually different things. Sometimes people get them confused, but upselling is the practice of encouraging clients to purchase a comparable higher price product or additional products. And cross-selling encourages them to buy related or complementary product. And so first thing that AI does with this is it gives you automated recommendations to customers. And I mean, we all see this with just basic e-commerce, Amazon, etc. From a sales standpoint, it also does the inverse. Again, remember, not everybody's interested, and so you're not going to put information in front of them that's not interesting. Why? Even if it's automated, because that may turn them off of the next automated email you send that they may be interested in, because they're starting to ignore your data, or they could unsubscribe. The other thing that you're able to see with AI is the likelihood to buy again. And so a purchase of a subset of product, services, or a certain amount of usage shows propensity to purchase another specific product or service. And so those accounts should be handled differently than ones that aren't showing that level of engagement. And then, of course, the revenue potential. So this highlights the most likely to purchase more expensive items or services. It speaks to a little bit what we were talking about in the last slide with customer lifetime value, but there's absolutely clients that, again, have more meat on the bone. And where do you focus? You can make assumptions based on the size of a company or their revenue, but really your focus should be based on what the data tells you using artificial intelligence. And then forecasting. So forecasting is really important. I've been in a lot of roles as VP of sales, director of sales. You always have the need to understand what your trajectory looks like for the next quarter, sometimes the next month, the next year, etc. And not only is it important to be able to know what to expect, but to be able to know, okay, if I'm not going to hit what we're expecting, to know that so you know how to get there. And so forecasting estimates how much revenue your company plans to generate over a certain period of time. And so what people are doing today, what we've seen, is they focus on just a few metrics, usually stages and deal values, things of that nature, instead of focusing on all metrics that uses all your data, which is really important because you might be focusing on too narrow of a scope and miss your forecast. Forecast, as far as these metrics, they're important also on an individual rep basis to understand how to make sure that they're hitting goals or get to goals. It also allows you to be prepared in terms of demand and also understand cyclical peaks and valleys. So, holidays, for example, where is your better period, where is your worst period, and what you do during those periods. So those are 4 specific ways that you can use AI. But really the big question, and what we wanted to make sure we went over in this webinar that we get a lot of confusion on, is, well, okay, great. I understand that those things are important. I understand AI can help with that, but how do I implement it? So a couple of options. One is hire a team of data scientists. So if you're looking for people that have the skill set, Harsh at a very high level, but has that type of skill set, they're really expensive, first off, and it's hard to find really quality ones as well. And then even once you've done that, you've got to train your sales team. You've got to update the data manually, monthly or quarterly. So this is something that, it's done where people are looking for trends, but it's not something that's keeping you up to date. It's not something that can really get all the way down to your individual sales reps to be able to use. Option 2 is you can auto update your predictions. Your team can get some consumable insights, predictions, action plans of what they should actually be doing, which is one of the biggest questions we always hear. And then sync data from everywhere as it happens so you're not playing catch up a month or 2 or a quarter later. Okay, well, what tools do I need to implement? So even if you have a team of data scientists, you're still going to need to have something, use some open source tools using Python, data mining, etc. And so there's, as far as some of the pros for this, a lot of these tools are potentially free. There's some predefined libraries out there. And again, we talk about the tools being free, but you've got the expensive resource of having people implement these. The cons: data security, technical expertise needed, no data cleaning, not necessarily real time, you're playing catch up. Okay, well, what are other options? Well, there's more and more tools coming out that offer different variations of machine learning that can give you artificial intelligence. SAS, IBM Watson, Oracle Cloud, of course, Proton AutoML, and Cliently, where we're mixing together. And so let's talk about some of the pros of some of these tools. And there's pros for some and there's cons for others, and they're not all the same for each one. But so the pros for some is real-time sync. Getting that data in real time so that your decision making, especially when you're talking about an individual rep level, can be in real time. That's really important. The difference between getting something after 1 day versus 30 days is either a lost deal, or a one deal sometimes. Easy to integrate your data cleaning, state-of-the-art model building. Some of the cons, some of these apps are extremely expensive, $80K per license plus. Still, some are not easy to implement. You still might need an engineer. they're not giving you consumable results. So they're giving you an output of data, but really then you're still going to need several data analysts to go through to figure out. And then sales teams need a lot of education to consume and potentially a lengthy setup period. So let's talk about the roles that use AI. So we're going to talk about just basically 6 or 7 roles in the sales space. We've got business development reps and sales development reps, which usually that means they are helping to uncover prospects, turn leads into prospects, usually for the purpose of putting demos in front or appointments in front of their account executives. And then, of course, you have account executives as well who are working a deal through a sales cycle to hopefully push that to a close. And so you've got, for them, and this is where I think the market is really bare out there with the tools, is insights on a granular level so that you know what to do on an individual lead or prospect basis. Because a lot of times BDRs, AEs, they're sort of flying in the dark outside of more granular insights that they're getting from their leadership. For the leadership team, directors, VPs, chief revenue officers, even CEOs, what's important to them is insights on a high level. So they know on an overall strategy level, what they need to implement, what they should be changing, where they should be focusing. And so just to give you an example of how you can get some real data in here, this is just one view. So in this case, what we're doing right now through Cliently, for example, is we're giving people the ability to bring in data from different areas and have it actually filter in real time. Because the last thing you want to do is look at siloed data. Okay, maybe you're looking at data just in Salesforce, but you're not also looking at a conversation and engagement of using a tool like Intercom or Drift or their billing system. And so you need to see all of that data in one place, and it needs to be synced in real time. And then the other thing is real-time predictions, to be able to see on an individual contact or company or deal basis where that time should be focused, and having that close percentage, for example, update in real time. That's so important because as that gets to a higher point, that means the propensity to close is moving up and up and up, but it can still move back down if you're not spending the right resources and time there, which this is now telling you you should. And another example here is, even looking at how much revenue potential. So we talked about customer lifetime value. Where should I focus that time? And so those are ways that you can use it for, a granular basis. If you're an SDR, BDR, account executive, okay, well, what if I'm a director or VP or CEO and I just need to see the high level of what I need to do? So that's really important because, again, you can get all those different types of data points, but how do I decipher what I do with them? And so what we have seen become really prominent in this space is basically human readable or consumable data that people know, here's what I actually need to do and here's what I'm looking at. So in this example, let's look at revenue optimization. I want to get more revenue per client. So out of 1,690 contacts in this example data here, we can predict revenue can be increased for 1,296 of them by an average of $387, which, wow, it's 501. It's almost it's a little over $500,000. Okay, great. Well, that's important to know, but now how do I get there? So then having those insights for success, and these are just 3 very basic examples that can get much more detailed, is really important for your leadership to be able to implement quickly and be able to do it in real time. So they're not having to play catch up and look at it every quarter, every year, but on a weekly, a monthly basis, etc., even real time. And so, for example, we can look at, hey, 3 marketing emails have been sent. There's been 8 page views, or 24 hours or less between marketing emails from when last seen, is sort of the spikes that help us convert more with these types of deals, so that we know, let's implement those things, let's push those through to these deals. And then on the flip side, you're looking at close predictions. Hey, we've got 72 contacts and we predict out of those that haven't closed, none of those are closed. 4 could become clients. That's an average of 1.3K in this case for an initial $5,200. Well, okay, $5,200, that's not a lot, but what if you have 5,000 of those contacts? And then you're able to close an additional 450. Well, all of a sudden, again, that's over $500,000. And having those insights, for example, know that when 7 emails are sent, or pitching a specific product, or using this specific template in combination of each other, gets you to those results. And again, that's the big thing also I want to mention is the combination of these pieces. Because a lot of times when you're making assumptions, you think, oh, we need to send more emails. Well, that's great, but how many exactly? When should we be sending them? Which template? And then also which product should we be pitching alongside that, and anything else that we should be doing that are key drivers? Because it's all those things combined, not just one, that leads to those type of results. So I'm going to wrap up. I'll pass it back to Harsh, and we can answer any questions.
Thank you, Spencer. I think it was a lot of good insights. I'll just expand my screen. Give me a minute. Yes. So, guys, please post your questions, any comments that you have in the chat. We'll be discussing it. As well as I'm attaching a link here. If you think, Spencer, would you like to tell them about the link that I just posted?
Yeah, so what we're doing is assessments of a sales process for anyone that wants to understand a little bit more specifics to their specific sales process of how to implement it. So if it's something you're interested in learning more for your sales team, for your product, service, company, happy to have those discussions and give you some guidance on how we can get you there.
Thank you, Spencer. So as I said, guys, we're going to take up the question and answers now. By the way, one more thing I would like to point out is that it may look very overwhelming if you as an organization is not doing any AI, any machine learning. It may look overwhelming. And yesterday I was speaking for George Mason University, and some of the students asked me in the MBA program that where are we going to start? It just looks so much. What do we start with? Churn prediction? Do we start with upselling, cross-selling? Do we start with lead scoring? What do we start with? So here's my answer for that. That you need to be sitting with your stakeholders and you need to be understanding what are the biggest problems in the organization. And once you understand the biggest problems, for example, I was just having this discussion with Spencer half an hour ago. With our organization, with Proton Auto ML, the biggest concern is that we have a lot of leads coming in and we do not understand which lead is a qualified, which lead is going to convert into a sales, and how many dollars are they going to be giving us. So we are using machine learning, but we are a new organization, so we don't yet have a lot of historical data set. So I was pointing out to Spencer, look, if I were an organization and I did not do any machine learning, I would have started with something as simple as lead scoring, because that is where a lot of time we spend, and we want to be spending time on the right people, right prospects, who will get the probabilities using machine learning that there is a 95% chance of him or her converting into a sales. So we'll be focusing all our efforts on those people. So that is where everybody gets started, identifying the biggest problems in the organization, and then convincing the stakeholders, and then tackling the problem. So there's one question that how can AI encrypt a consumer's behavior, and create an analysis? So anytime, think of it like I have, let's say, social security number of a person, I have phone number, I have email, I have a lot of personal information of a customer. Now, this is not going to be used in a machine learning, so I can hide it, I can delete it from the analysis. I don't have to use any of that information, any of that personal information, because of two reasons. Number one, it's not ethical AI. It's not ethical to use somebody's personal information like phone number, email. And number two, why I'm not going to be using it? Because it's of no use in machine learning. Everybody has a different social security number. Everybody has a different email, different phone number, different name. So it's not going to make sense. Machine learning has to find some patterns in the data, and it will see those variables. It will not find any pattern, and it will just going to ignore those variables. So we're not going to be using, we are actually in a way, we are encrypting the information, the personal information. And so now I do not know that this type of behavior is exhibited by these type of people. I do not know any information about them other than that this is one type of thing, one type of people exhibiting certain type of behavior. And the other is how do you create analysis? So it's simple. Once we have the data set, we are going to be, remember, going back to the overview of the machine learning process. Okay, I'll make it quick once again since you got disconnected. The quick answer is that we are not using anybody's personal information. We are deleting it from our analysis, we are not using it. And besides, machine learning cannot use it because it's very personal and very different for every individual. Now, when we have to create an analysis, we have to create a data set accordingly, and we have to make sure that we clean the data, we are preparing it for machine learning model. Now, machine learning models only understand the numeric information. So for example, let's say there's a variable called what type of a car the person has, and the type of cars are Nissan Altima, Mercedes Benz. Now, machine learning model is not going to understand those variables because it's in English. They're only going to be understand the binary, not binary, but the numeric information. So you need to make your data, convert your data into numeric information, as well as you need to do a lot of feature engineering, which is nothing but building more information out of your current information. For example, if I have a date column, I would break it down into the day, the month, the year, is it a holiday or not. So I'm going to break it down into multiple variables, and now it's numeric information, and now I will feed it into the machine learning models. So this is how we are going to be doing the analysis. And I think another thing that I would like to add is so we would wrap up in 5 to 10 minutes. Guys, please post your questions. We have got another 5 to 10 minutes. So one thing I would like to say is that analysis can be good, can be bad, depending on how you're doing it. So you need to be approaching any data science problem, any machine learning problem from a very scientific point of view. Your processes need to be right. You cannot be doing wrong processes, because if you're not cleaning your data right, if you're not handling the missing values the right way, if you're not doing the normalizing of data, you're not standardizing the data, you're not doing all those things, you're going to have a bad output. You're going to have bad accuracy, RMSE, the weighted F1, the ROC, AUC. Those are all the metrics we use to compare the machine learning models. They're all going to be so bad because the processes were not followed correctly. So you need to be very vigilant when you're following those processes. And that is why I think that's a great thing about AutoML right now. Something as simple as Proton AutoML. We are taking care of the processes. You don't have to clean the data. You don't have to worry about feature engineering. You don't have to worry about model building. We are doing it everything on our end. It's all automated, and you can be absolutely sure that we are following the right processes, because we're giving out the results that we give out every time are scoring in the Kaggle in the top 1%, 2%. So there's another question. So someone who is early in their AI career, potentially what kind of task he or she is going to get? Interesting. It really depends purely where you're going to be working. It purely depends on which organization, what role you're going to be doing. So let me give you an example of me. When I started out in the companies, I was doing a lot of data cleaning, feature engineering, and that nearly took 80% of my time. And then the model building was a very small part of it. And then there were presentations. Presentations used to take a lot of time. So again, it really depends. If you're starting your career in more of like visualization, business intelligence, you'll be doing a lot of visualization work. If you're starting as a like top-notch data scientist, I would say 50 to 60% of your work in data preparation, cleaning, model building, tuning parameters, presentations is huge. As a data scientist, if you're starting out, you won't have to be convincing the stakeholders, but once you are rising in the ladder, you'll be also talking to executives, the directors, the managers, convincing them that, look, I think this project is worth it. This project will add a lot of value. We should be doing it. So that's how I see it happening. If you're starting in a more research focused role, maybe you're doing NLP problems, natural linguistic programming problems. Maybe you're doing more computer vision problems. If you're starting in the world of sales, then lead scoring is a great example that you want to be doing. Spencer, do you want to add that when you started out your career in sales, uh, like what were you seeing the machine learning? How was it evolving at that time? You're on mute, Spencer. Now it's good.
So if we're going back to that period, there wasn't really AI machine learning. In fact, the SaaS was not even really a thing when I started my career in the very early 2000s. But where I've seen AI and machine learning really take off in the last few years really has to do with again the reactive versus proactive, and that a lot of times is the difference in closing deals. Because if you're late to the party, if you are sending information that isn't mission critical to the solution that your client needs, all sorts of things, then you lose out. And so that's where I'm seeing the biggest differences of late.
Yeah, I think in last 4 or 5 years, things have evolved a lot from companies using Tableau, Power BI. They are switching to machine learning, and next 2 3 years is going to be very crucial for companies because the manual processes of machine learning is being automated now. For example, the auto ML automating the machine learning, the ML ops automating the deployment of the models. So more and more we see companies automating even their machine learning processes, and more so in next 2 to 3 years.
I agree. It doesn't look like any more questions for now, Harsh. So do you want to go ahead and wrap up?
Yeah, guys. So we'll wrap it up since it was half an hour webinar. So thank you guys for coming on the webinar. We have it next week as well. So looking forward to see you guys next week.